I've spent the better part of a decade exploring the wilderness, hiking trails, camping under the stars, disappearing into forests for days at a time. Over those 10 years, I've stumbled across things I couldn't quite explain. Strange tracks that didn't match any animal I knew, abandoned campsites where gear lay scattered like the owners had fled in a panic. Odd things, sure, but nothing that ever made me consider giving up the one hobby that kept me sane. That all changed last November. It was early winter. The heavy snowfall hadn't arrived yet, but the cold had settled in deep. The kind of cold that turns the earth rock solid beneath your boots. Every single step you take echoes through the trees like a gunshot. My friend Dennis and I planned one final trip before the weather became unbearable. A state forest about 3 hours north of our town. We wanted to squeeze in one more adventure before being trapped indoors for months. We pulled into the trailhead parking lot around 10 in the morning. Our plan was simple: get off the marked paths, find total solitude. No families, no casual hikers snapping photos. Just the two of us, deep in the wilderness, freezing our tails off for a couple of nights. We walked for hours. The forest around us was painted in shades of gray and brown. Most of the trees had surrendered their leaves to autumn, except for a handful of stubborn oaks still clinging to their dead foliage. And the silence. I can't stress enough how quiet it was. No insects humming, no songbirds calling out, just the bitter wind slicing through bare branches. By 4 in the afternoon, the sun was already sinking toward the horizon. Long shadows stretched across the forest floor, like reaching fingers. We decided it was time to find a place to set up camp, and we found the perfect spot. A small clearing sat beside a creek. The water flowed crystal clear over smooth gray stones, so cold it almost looked like liquid glass. About 10 feet from the water's edge, there was a flat patch of ground surrounded by thick pine trees on 3 sides. It felt protected, safe even. Now I need you to understand something important about what happened next. We spent a long time preparing that campsite. We cleared away every rock and stick from the ground where our tent would go. We walked circles around the entire perimeter, gathering firewood. I personally passed by every inch of that clearing multiple times. There was nothing unusual there, just frozen dirt, dead pine needles, and scattered stones. We pitched our 2-person tent with the door facing the creek. I remember thinking how nice it would be to fall asleep to the sound of rushing water. By the time we got our fire burning properly, complete darkness had swallowed the forest. We heated up some freeze-dried beef stroganoff, which honestly tastes like a gourmet meal when you're exhausted and half frozen. We dragged a fallen log near the fire pit and sat there talking until maybe 10:30. Normal conversation, jobs, relationships, video games, just 2 buddies enjoying the last warmth of dying flames. Eventually, the cold became too much. "I'm done," Dennis announced, pushing himself to his feet and stretching his arms. "I'm turning into an icicle out here." "Go ahead," I told him. "I'll be right behind you. Just want to make sure this fire is completely dead." He crawled into the tent while I stayed behind. I spent another 15 minutes pouring creek water over the glowing embers and kicking dirt across them until not a single spark remained. Before heading in, I swept my headlamp across the surrounding trees one final time. The beam illuminated nothing but empty forest and black water. I climbed into my sleeping bag. Dennis was already breathing heavily, drifting off to sleep. I know for certain I was the last one awake. It took me a while to get comfortable on the frozen ground, but eventually the gentle sound of the creek pulled me under. I slept hard that night, deeper than I usually do when camping. Normally the smallest noise, a snapping twig, a rustling leaf, jolts me awake. But that night, I heard absolutely nothing. No footsteps, no movement, complete silence. I woke around 6:30 in the morning. That pale gray light of early dawn filled the tent, making everything look washed out and lifeless. The air was so cold, I could see each breath leave my lips in little white clouds. Nature was calling urgently, so I tried to unzip my sleeping bag as quietly as possible. Didn't want to disturb Dennis. I pulled on my boots, then reached for the tent door zipper. The sound it made seemed impossibly loud in the still morning air. I pushed the flap open and looked outside. My heart didn't just skip a beat, it stopped completely. Sitting on a large flat rock directly in front of our tent, no more than 4 feet from where I knelt, was a teddy bear. It wasn't new. This thing was old and filthy. A faded blue stuffed bear that looked like it might have been one of those Care Bears from the 80s. Whatever symbol once decorated its belly had worn away completely, replaced by years of accumulated grime. The fur was soaking wet and matted down. One of its plastic eyes was scratched and clouded over. But the positioning, that's what made my blood turn to ice. This bear wasn't lying on its side like someone had tossed it there. It was sitting perfectly upright, legs extended forward, arms resting at its sides, and its head was tilted ever so slightly, angled so that its remaining good eye pointed directly at our tent door. I couldn't move. My body refused to respond. My mind raced frantically, trying to understand how this was possible. I had walked past that rock dozens of times yesterday. I had practically sat on it. There was nothing there. I backed into the tent slowly, my breathing turning quick and shallow. My hand found Dennis's shoulder, and I shook him hard. "Dennis, you need to wake up right now." He groaned and rubbed his face. What's going on? What time is it? Just sit up and look outside." Annoyed, he pushed himself upright and leaned toward the open door. I watched his expression transform. First came confusion as his sleepy brain tried to process what he was seeing. Then his eyes went wide and his face drained of color. "What the hell is that?" he whispered. He turned to me, almost accusingly. "Did you put that there?" "No, I literally just opened my eyes 2 minutes ago. It was sitting there waiting." Dennis looked back at the bear, then scanned the tree line surrounding our camp. "Is someone watching us?" We sat frozen in place for what felt like an eternity, just listening. The only sound was the creek gurgling over its stones. The silence was maddening. If there had been a branch snapping or footsteps retreating, or even someone laughing at their sick joke, at least we would have known where they were, but there was nothing. Just dead, empty quiet. "We're leaving," Dennis said firmly. "Right now!" I grabbed my hunting knife from my pack. We crawled out of the tent together, fully expecting someone to leap from behind a tree at any moment. But the forest remained still and silent. We approached the bear slowly. Up close, it was even more disturbing. The smell hit me first. Mildew and old earth, like something that had been buried and dug up again. The thing was completely saturated with moisture, either from the morning frost, or perhaps it had been sitting in the creek. But here's the thing, it was placed on a completely dry section of rock. "Check the ground," I said quietly. We examined the frozen earth around the rock. The surface was covered in dead leaves and pine needles, all locked in place by the hard frost. We searched desperately for footprints, boot marks, any sign that someone had walked through here. Nothing. The ground was too solid and too cluttered with debris to hold any tracks. "Someone put this here," Dennis said, his voice shaking now. "They walked right up to our tent in the middle of the night while we were unconscious." That thought hit me like a punch to the stomach. The fabric of our tent was paper thin. Whoever did this had stood inches away from our heads while we slept helplessly. They had lingered in the darkness, carefully positioning this rotten toy so it would stare at us the moment we woke up. They didn't steal anything. They didn't hurt us. They just wanted us to know they had been there. They wanted us to know we were being watched. "Forget eating," I said. pack everything now. We broke down that campsite faster than we ever had before. A process that normally takes 20 careful minutes was finished in 5 frantic ones. We didn't bother rolling the tent or organizing our gear. We just crammed everything into our packs as quickly as humanly possible. The entire time, my eyes kept darting to the trees. The woods felt completely different now. Yesterday they had seemed peacefully empty. Now they felt suffocatingly crowded. I kept catching movement in my peripheral vision, but every time I spun around, there was only a branch swaying in the wind. We left that blue bear exactly where we found it. Neither of us could bring ourselves to touch it. The hike back to the car was pure terror. We moved as fast as our legs could carry us without breaking into a full sprint. Every 50 yards or so, we'd both glance over our shoulders simultaneously. Every time the wind pushed dry leaves across our path, we flinched like startled animals. We barely spoke, just focused on covering ground. We had planned to stay until Sunday. We were back at the car before noon on Friday. The moment I slid into the driver's seat and heard the locks click shut, the relief was overwhelming. But then came the questions. The horrible, unanswerable questions.